Hi, my name is Mark Venziano, and this is my cultural presentation. Think back through your life to a time when you felt alone. Now, try to imagine a place that's filled with laughter and conversation, a warm oasis to take shelter from the cold isolation that can be our society, a place where your gender, sexual preferences, race, age, and even disabilities have no impact on your acceptance. We've all felt like misfits at some time, but there's a place where all are welcome. Just go online and find the closest game shop playing Magic the Gathering. In its almost 25 years, this game has created a rich subculture filled with ritual, jargon, nonverbal communication, and acceptance. The players are from countless countries and diverse backgrounds, but they all have one thing in common. They all find a warm place where they can be themselves every Friday night. I'm going to be telling you all about how Magic the Gathering got started, how the game is played, some of the jargon and even shorthand language that is developed around an ever-changing and complex game, how the gameplay formula and nonverbal communication allows interaction between players that don't always share a common spoken language. And finally, I'll be discussing the factors that have made this subculture so accepting and inclusive. The history of Magic the Gathering. Invented by Richard Garfield, it was originally released by Wizards of the Coast in 1993. Magic the Gathering is the first and most widely played trading card game in the world. With more than 10,000 unique cards and roughly 500 more created each year in regular expansion, this is a massive game. Infinite number of possibilities and combinations. Friday Night Magic occurs weekly in game shops, schools, and libraries across the world. This is all due to the Wizards Play Network offering support for local play. They give all the tools that people need in order to run these events. And according to the Magic the Gathering fact sheet, in 1996, Wizards of the Coast established the Pro Tour, and they've awarded more than $30 million in cash prizes since its launch. These prizes are given through tournaments and worldwide with over 12 million players in 70 countries. The basic premise of the game is you're going to collect cards. You're going to assemble your favorite cards into decks. You're going to use the decks to battle other players. You're going to reduce your opponent's life total from 20 to 0. The gameplay, the types of cards. The first type of card that you're going to encounter are spells. This is going to be the vast majority of what you're going to see. These are things like creatures. Creatures are what you're going to use to do battle with each other, to inflict damage upon your opponent. Artifacts. These are things that are going to be helping to bolster your creatures, make them bigger, make them stronger, or maybe have magical effects. And then instants and sorceries, and these are just what you think they would be. These are me casting a spell that's going to change something on the board. Spells cost mana to cast, and a player has to have enough land or mana in play to pay for it. This cost is listed on the top of the card. In this case, you're going to see the Shivan Dragon has 4 and then 2 of these little red symbols. Well, the 2 little red symbols mean you need 2 red land, and then 4 of any other kind of land. They can be 4 more red land. They can be a variety of different land. There are 5 types of colors of land. There's white, which represent plains, red, which are mountains, black, which is swamp, green, which is forest, and blue, which is island. And each of these colors represent a different style or metaphysical property that's going to affect how you play each of those colors and what those colors are really all about. During each person's turn, this is what they're going to go through. This is the process of a turn. So you're going to do your beginning phase, and then your main phase, and then your combat phase where you're declaring your attackers, and then your second main phase, and then finally your ending phase. Because of the huge number of cards there are cards that are similar and actions that have happened so often that the players have developed a jargon or shorthand so that they can easily communicate with each other. An example of some of these terms might be mana flood. So if I start drawing cards for my deck and I'm drawing way too many lands and not enough creatures or spells, I'm going to end up losing the game because all I have on the board is land, and the land doesn't do anything except work as currency for me. Mana screw, where I'm drawing all creatures and spells and not drawing enough land, so I can't cast anything. You get things like a description of a player, a Spike. Spike is an extremely competitive player. They don't even let kids win if it makes them cry. And then Scoop. So to scoop means to concede the game. This is just a few of over 100 different Magic the Gathering terms. The last jargon term we discussed is one of the easiest things to understand about the nonverbal communication of Magic the Gathering. When a player concedes the game, they typically offer their hand in congratulations and then scoop up their cards. At no point is it necessary for the losing player to vocalize their submission. Nonverbal communication happens in almost all aspects of the game because of the complexity of the game. As games go on, they get very complex with lots of creatures and resources on the board. To keep everyone honest and to keep the game comprehensible, players tap their cards as they are used. That is, all that's required to do this is to turn the card a noticeable amount. You'll see here in this video, if it plays, there it goes. You'll see here in this video that you're just really just turning the card. It's important because creatures that are used for attacking can't be used to defend your opponents anymore. It's important because once you've used a land to pay for a spell, you need to make sure that you're not trying to double dip, that you're not paying for it twice. And then because each turn contains so many different phases, a player can choose to not attack or cast spells, turns, and you can end your turn at any moment. To signify this, the player turns their hand palm up and extends it, in some extent towards the other player, much in the same way that you offer a person to go through a doorway before you. Like, my turn's over, now it's your turn. It's a commonly understood and regimented structure of the game that allows people of so many countries to meet at international Pro Tour events. It makes ethnicity and country of origin moot. Any player can sit down with any other player and accomplish this. It's pretty extraordinary. One of the most interesting aspects of Magic the Gathering is the inclusiveness of the culture. In order to maximize sales, Magic needed to be a game that was constantly changing so that players were always buying new products. They needed to use as many cultures and themes as possible so that they could come up with new stories and worlds for this game to take place. And because of this, they have sets and story arcs that have taken place in a variety of worlds. Some based on traditional fantasy tropes, worlds that elves and wizards and dwarves inhabit, but you can't sustain a game for 25 years with that limited scope. So they found themselves introducing players to worlds that were based on Greek mythology and feudal Japan, ancient Egypt, and even Industrial Revolution, where like robots and machines are powered kind of by like steampunk-styled magical energy. Over time, it was possible for players to command armies of zombies, lions, or even dragons. They could play in a style that fit them. They could be a blue, based intellectual, and use cunning strategy to turn an opponent's cards against themselves. They could play green and control the forces of life and growth. They could be red and fight with passion and fire. They could combine colors. They could create custom spectrums that combined the military prowess and team-centric ideals of white with the ruthless power of like a black vampire. A player can literally be anything they want. They can play in any style they want, and they're rewarded by their creativity and praised by their ability to identify the personal strengths and weaknesses of their deck and balance them into a cohesive self. It's an incredibly empowering idea for a group of people that historically have felt powerless. According to Lauren Orsini in her article for Forbes, Wizards of the Coast has taken strategic steps to open the door for everyone, and they do so by their game design and artwork. They realized that there were not as many female players as they would have liked, so they made more powerful female characters. They've made choices to have more female commentators for the Pro Tour, more cards that could be identified as African, Asian, or more racially ambiguous figures. The result of which is that, unlike most media, the hero of any given story or game is unlikely to be just another muscle-bound white guy. Because of all of this work, they've created this great game in which anyone can feel they're represented. The game continues to grow, the tournaments get larger, the players become more and more diverse. That diversity offers wizards a larger pool of customers for their products, and subsequently a safe place for millions of people. So the idea of inclusivity is what has made Magic the Gathering one of the most financially viable game platforms of all time, as well as one of the most interesting subcultures that you can join on any Friday night. In conclusion, the most interesting aspect of Magic the Gathering for me has been how a game can bring so many people together despite their varying political views or backgrounds, how a capitalist venture like game development can sponsor social change and provide many of the same things that religion or churches provided in the past. With seemingly more and more people becoming disconnected from their communities and culture, these types of subculture communities will become vital to fulfilling the social needs of our society. That's my presentation. I hope you've enjoyed it.